Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.
Tonight we stand at the edge of the year. The air bites with the chill of endings. The fields lie empty, the light fades earlier each night, and in the hush between one breath and the next, the world feels different. Ancient people once said that on this night, the walls between the living and the dead grew thin enough to see through, thin enough to cross. This is Samhain, the oldest Halloween. Before jack-o'-lanterns and trick-or-treaters, there was the fire-lit hill, the harvest's end, and the quiet dread of what walked unseen in the dark. But Sow-in isn't just history, it's alive. A shadow that lingers beneath every glowing pumpkin, a whisper in every autumn breeze. And tonight, we'll journey back to where it began, into the haunted places where it still waits. So gather close to the fire and listen well, because when we speak of Sow-in, we're not only telling a story, we're inviting the past to join us. Thousands of years ago, long before Christianity, before even Rome reached the misty shores of Ireland and Scotland, the Celts ruled these lands. To them, the year was split into two halves, the light and the dark. Beltane, celebrated in May, marked the birth of summer, a season of growth, warmth, and light. But Samhain, falling on October 31st, was its opposite, the death of summer, the descent into the long, cold night of winter. The Celts didn't see time as linear, but cyclical, an eternal turning of the wheel. And at Samhain, the wheel paused. The world held its breath as the line between life and death blurred. It wasn't just a metaphor, it was literal. To them, the veil between the worlds grew thin enough for spirits to pass through. Ancestors, fae, gods, and darker things. At sunset, across Ireland and Scotland to the Isle of Man, the people climbed to sacred hilltops where the Druids waited. There, the Samhain fires would be lit, enormous bonfires whose smoke was said to purify the land and protect it through the coming winter. From the great flame in a sacred site in County Meath, villagers carried home burning embers to rekindle their hearths. It was a ritual of renewal. The old fires of summer were extinguished, and from Samhain's sacred blaze, new life began. But it wasn't just a celebration, it was fear. Because the Celts believed that if these fires ever failed, the darkness would rise, bringing with it the restless dead. To keep the spirits at bay, the people made offerings, food, milk, coins, even drops of their own blood cast into the flames. Some tales say that Druids could see the future in the smoke, visions of who would survive the winter and who would not. If your name was whispered by the flames, you were already marked. Samhain was also the night of the fae, but not the fluttering fairies of children's tales. These were the old ones, the hidden people who lived in the mountains and hills, the Sidhe. They were neither good nor evil, but dangerous, capricious, proud, and easily offended. It was said that on Samhain night the fae would ride forth, their silver horses gliding across moonlit fields. They might bring blessings to those who honored them, or curses to those that did not. People left offerings of milk and honey outside their doors, or hung rowan branches over their thresholds for protection. Children were warned never to look the fae in the eye, never to speak their true names. In parts of Ireland, the puka, a shape-shifting spirit, was said to roam on Samhain, spoiling crops and leading travelers astray. If you met the puka after dark, it might appear as a black horse with eyes like embers. It would speak your name, and if you followed it, you would never find your way home again. Perhaps one of the most sacred parts of Samhain was not the fire, but the table. In every home, families would set out food and drink for the dead, a meal for those who once lived among them. A seat was left empty, a candle burning in the window to guide the spirits home. These were called dumb suppers, silent meals where the living and the dead could share the same space. No one spoke during these suppers. Every sound was a risk, because to speak might invite the wrong spirit to answer. There are records, even to the 19th century, of these silent feasts across Ireland, Wales, and the Scottish Highlands. Some families swore that as they ate, they could hear soft footsteps on the floorboards, the faint creak of a chair settling under unseen weight. One tale from Donegal tells of a family who forgot to leave out a plate for their departed grandfather one Samhain night. The next morning, their milk had soured, the bread was moldy, and every clock in the house had stopped at 3:03 a.m. After that, they never forgot again. Among all the spirits that roamed the Samhain darkness, one name carried dread beyond all others, the Dullahan, a headless rider upon a black steed. It was said to carry its own head beneath its arm, its skin rotted and stretched tight, its mouth twisted in a smile wide enough to split its face. He used the spine of a human corpse as a whip. Wherever he stopped, someone would die. No lock, no door could keep him out. Some versions say he served an ancient fertility god who demanded blood sacrifice. When those sacrifices were outlawed, he became Crom's dark messenger, collecting souls instead. It was said that if you saw him ride, you only had moments to live, unless you carried gold. For reasons lost to time, the Dullahan feared gold. Even a single coin could drive him away. And if you hear hoofbeats echoing down an empty road on Samhain night, you'd best not look behind you. Further north, in the Highlands of Scotland and across Wales, another legend took shape, one that's already been previously spoken upon: the Wild Hunt. Led by a god, the hunt was a spectral procession of the dead. Riders, hounds, warriors, all long gone, and all thundering across the sky. They were said to hunt the souls of the newly dead, gathering them before winter's darkness closed in. People claimed to see them as streaks of light over the clouds, or to hear the baying of ghostly hounds in the distance. Some said the hunt passed over crossroads where the veil between the worlds was the weakest. If you heard it coming, you had to lie flat on the ground and cover your eyes, because if you looked upon the hunt, they might see you too, and force you to join them. In certain places, like the fairy mounds of Newgrange or in the ancient hill of Tara, it was said that the Sidhe opened on Sow-in. People who wandered too close vanished into those hills, never to return. Or sometimes they did return, centuries later. One story tells of a man who disappeared on Samhain night after following a strange light across the moor. His family searched for him for days, finding only his footprints that suddenly stopped at the mouth of a hollow hill. 50 years later, a traveler knocked on that same family's door. It was the man, unaged, confused, and asking why his dinner had grown cold. He said he'd only been gone an hour. He died before dawn, and when they buried him, the earth around his grave grew cold for years after. When Christianity spread into the Celtic lands, it found Samhain too deeply rooted to erase, so the church adapted it. In the 8th century, Pope Gregory III declared November 1st to be All Saints' Day, and the night before became All Hallows' Eve. But the bonfires remained, the masks endured, the fear of wandering souls never died. In the countryside, people still left offerings for the Fae and for their ancestors, only now they only called them souls. The church turned those offerings into a practice called Sow-in. The poor went door to door on All Hallows' Eve, offering prayers for the dead in exchange for food or soul cakes. Centuries later, this would evolve into trick-or-treating. Even today, in certain corners of Ireland, some still leave food out on Samhain night, not for saints, but for the unseen. We all know the glowing grin of a Halloween pumpkin, but it began as a much darker legend. The Irish told of Stingy Jack, a cunning drunkard who tricked the devil himself. When Jack died, heaven refused him, and hell couldn't claim him, so he was condemned to wander the earth with only a burning coal inside a hollowed-out turnip to light his way. People began carving their own lanterns from turnips or beets, and placing candles inside to ward off wandering souls like Jack's. When Irish immigrants arrived in America, they found pumpkins, larger, easier to carve, and eerily beautiful when lit from within. And thus, the modern Halloween jack-o'-lantern was born, but its soul remains Samhain's. Though centuries have passed, the spirit of Samhain endures. In Ireland, on an ancient hill, there are people that still gather every October 31st. They light bonfires and tell stories, echoing the same rites performed 2,000 years ago. In small towns across the Highlands, old superstitions still linger. Fishermen still refuse to set sail on Samhain. Farmers still leave milk on fence posts for the fair folk. And across the world, those who follow modern pagan paths celebrate Samhain as the Celtic New Year, a time to honor ancestors, release the past, and embrace the coming dark. Yet even outside of ritual and faith, something deeper survives. When the nights grow long, when the wind howls across the fields, we feel it, that ancient stirring, that awareness that maybe, just maybe, the world isn't quite as closed as we think, because on Samhain night, the old magic wakes. Every generation claims to have seen it, the proof that Samhain's power hasn't faded. In County Kerry, near the ruins of an old Celtic ring fort, a group of teens went exploring on Halloween night. They took photos, laughed, and dared each other to walk across the mound. One of them finally did. They took a photo, and when the film was developed, one image showed a figure standing behind them. Tall, blurred, almost transparent with hollow eyes. The camera had no reflection error. The negative was untouched, and the ground where they'd stood has been avoided ever since. In rural Scotland, farmers tell of seeing lights dancing above old burial mounds, glowing blue and white, the same colors described in folklore as fairy fire. Even modern sensors and drones fail to capture them. The lights vanish when approached. Sometimes so do the watchers. It seems the veil doesn't care if you believe in it. It opens all the same. Samhain is more than a date. It's a mirror. It shows us how little separates us from what came before. From the fear of the dark, from the love of our dead, from the need to light a fire and keep watch until dawn. It reminds us that every ending is also a beginning. That in death, there's a turning. Not finality, but renewal. When we light our jack-o'-lanterns, when we dress in masks, when we gather around flickering fires, we're reenacting the oldest ritual in human history, the defiance of darkness and the unknown. Because deep down, even in our age of screens and lights, we know there's still something out there, moving between the worlds, waiting for this one night to cross over again in the darkness. And as we leave you here, remember, the legends of our weird world are boundless. If you've enjoyed tonight's story, share it with others, like and subscribe to our channel to help us keep these fires burning. Your support keeps these stories alive, keeps the veil open just long enough for the old tales to whisper through. Until the next time, stay curious, and always remember the warmth of life within you, because tonight, the veil is thin.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.